Hi everyone. I want to welcome you to the first interview with an architect. And we have Gina here joining us today. So Gina, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, Rachel. Thank you for having me. My name is Gina Volpicelli. I'm an architect at Shalom Baronis Associates. I have about 13 years of experience in the architecture profession. Shalom Baronis is about a 120 plus person architecture firm, and we're all architects. So we're working on purely architecture projects in the DMV, so in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. I'm also involved in the Washington Architectural Foundation and have been teaching kids about architecture for 10 plus years.
Great. So what got you interested in architecture?
I think I've had an interest in architecture from very early on. I had interest in drawing and creating and making things. When I was younger, when I used to see images of buildings that would be of interest to me in books or magazines, I would imagine what I thought those insides of those buildings would be like, and I would do drawings that I thought what those interior spaces would be. So I was doing my own version of floor plans before I even knew what a floor plan actually was. Then when I was in high school, the subjects that interest me most and I most enjoyed were math and sciences. For those subjects, it was the process of discovery, of problem solving, doing experiments to get the answers and solutions. So it was a accumulation of all these things that led to my interest in kind of pursuing a path in architecture.
Great. What advice do you have for kids that are kind of unsure of themselves and if they want to get into the field or not?
Yeah, the advice that I would have for these students would be, I would encourage you to draw and draw regularly. Take art classes if you can to develop some drawing skills and learn techniques. I think there's a slight misconception out there that you're either born knowing how to draw or you can't draw, but drawing is a technique and it's something that you can learn and you can develop your skill set over time. So anyone can learn how to draw if you put in the time. Some other things I would suggest is if you have the opportunity to take a drafting or 3D modeling class, if available, play around with Google SketchUp, it's free online. Look at your local AIA chapters for programs. The Architectural Foundation here in DC has great workshops and programs on the weekends. I would also say that you can expose yourself to great works of architecture through websites like ArchiNect, ArchDaily, TED Talks, podcasts, books, museum exhibits. If you're in visiting a different city, go on an architectural tour of that city, and just follow colleges and university. Their architecture programs usually have Instagram pages of what their students are up to. So take a look at that as well.
What's one thing you think all aspiring architects should know, young or a little older?
So one thing I think all inspiring architects should know is to maybe take the time to create a vision of where you want to go and what you want to do design-wise. Sit down and write out that vision. It's important during times of uncertainty or if you need more clarity of what you would like to do, and it would help inform your next steps of getting where you'd like to be. I think there's a big goal coming out of school that you need to kind of get a job right away and kind of get into the workforce. But by having this vision and knowing what you want, will it start to inform your career and your professional development in the years to come. So just kind of think about what you want to get out of it.
Great. So shifting a little bit, who is your inspiration or what is your inspiration when you're working?
So one of the people who've been an inspiration to me throughout my college and then my professional career has been Ray Eames. She's worked on a variety of media. This includes material research, furniture, architecture, textiles, film, and toys. And I've found it very interesting that she works across all these various scales, from the human scale of plywood furniture pieces to larger scale of houses. And her focus was a lot of getting the most out of the least, and just out of basic standard building materials. So stuff you could get from the hardware store, like right down the road. And then she also found delight in everyday objects, which I find really inspiring.
Great. So that kind of leads me to my next question of how do architects make a difference in the world?
So architects in our profession, we're involved in a lot of aspects of the built environment. And then we also kind of involve the people that inhabit those buildings as well. So architecture is more than just buildings. It's about the people that use those buildings. So architects make a difference in the world by creating spaces that enable occupants of the buildings to kind of thrive and kind of live their best life. So everything from the layout of the space, of the material and the finishes, to including the fresh air and sunlight into the building, plants and nature, can contribute to the occupant's health, mood, and productivity. So for people that work in office buildings, for example, it's been proven that people who work in well-designed spaces take less sick leave, are more focused, and are generally contribute more to their companies.
Okay. So how do you think the history, just general history, impacts architecture today?
So there's a lot that we could take from history. From history, we can learn so much about the ways that society functions, past cultural practices, the process of human thinking. I think by looking at materials on buildings, you can really see the changes of the industry over time. So pre-industrial revolution, the structure was limited by the capabilities of natural materials. Through the Industrial Revolution, it brought materials such as cast iron, steel, glass, which really pushed the boundaries of function, size, and form of buildings. And then there was the introduction of concrete that made buildings taller. You were able to construct them quicker. They were more affordable. So advancements in technology and manufacturing contributed greatly in the evolution of the architectural design that we see today. So one way the building industry now is kind of revolutionizing is the way we design is through the types of construction materials. So there's new concrete out there that's self-healing, that kind of patches over its own cracks and eliminates leaks, so you don't have to go and repair it. There's light generating concrete that absorbs and kind of radiates light energy. Timber has been kind of pushed forward with evolutions in technology. It has allowed timber structures to get to higher heights, and we're building a lot taller structures with timber. And then there's also the option out there, you can customize buildings with 3D printing. So today it's about making all these kind of better material choices to kind of, as you're starting your design.
Okay, that's very interesting. So kind of going along with that, how do you see the world of architecture changing in 10, 20 years from now?
So architecture is evolving really quickly with the use of technology right now. The amount of technology that we're seeing in buildings and how we kind of envision and design buildings is rapidly changing. This is with the use of AR and VR technologies, and they're helping us inform the way we can communicate designs and that we could actually go and see the construction process. So these advancements have allowed technology to be more accessible, and they're readily more available now than they were before because they don't require major financial investments. So down the road, 10 years, 20 years, this interwovenness of building and technology is going to probably be more prevalent in the way we experience buildings every day.
Interesting. So what are some resources kids can use to sort of learn about the changing um, tools that architects use, so they kind of get a better understanding of everything?
Is this like, what we do on a daily basis with computers, or is this what?
Yeah, it can be daily basis, but for example, some of our students, they like to kind of be really prepared when they go into courses and things like that. So what are some steps that uh, kids can take, or tools that they can start to really learn? Like I know you mentioned SketchUp, that would be really beneficial to them.
Yeah, I would just, if you have the opportunity to take any drafting courses in school, I would definitely do that. I had the opportunity in high school to do that, and I think it definitely set me up to understand the technology that people use to communicate drawings and their ideas through drawings. Um, Also in school, I was in a class that was the last class that did a bunch of hand drawings. So having those techniques of being able to hand draw, and then also being able to use the technology of the computers to generate your ideas, you're able to do that a little bit more quickly by being able to think through the process and how all these parts of the buildings come together. So I think that's what would be my suggestion on tools.
Okay. Um, so what is your favorite part about being an architect?
My favorite part about being an architect is that there's new challenges that I come across every day. Every day is an adventure with having interesting clients and projects that are unique. As an architect, you're always learning, whether it's about new materials, technologies, drawing programs to help you convey your ideas, discovering ways people are interacting with spaces, or ways of detailing a building condition. So I just find it really exciting that every day is kind of a new adventure.
Great. And then finally, is there anything you want kids that are interested in the field but are hesitant to get into it? Is there anything you want them to know?
Yeah, so if you were on the fence of considering architecture, I would say that there's so many things that you can do with an architectural degree, so many paths that you can take in the profession, or take your career in a complete opposite direction in a way. The skill sets that you gain in your architectural education of problem solving, analytical thinking, verbal communication, and collaboration, you learn these different techniques and the ways you can evaluate and synthesize information that you can then apply to real world problems. So not only are you left with the option of like taking the traditional path of being an architect and being a member in a firm, but you could also focus your career on topics of sustainability or technology or city planning or preservation. And there's so many other options out there. So I would just kind of keep an open mind and just know that, there's options within the architecture profession that you have on the other end.
Great. Is there anything else you want to share with us today, or?
Just, I think that covers everything, and I'm happy to answer more questions if they come.
Okay, well, if we get any other questions, we'll send them on to you. Gina, thank you for joining us for our first interview with an architect. And we'll see everyone next week for another installment.